Okay, hey, Youth Worker Nation, it's Doug Edwards, and here for another episode with Youth Worker on Fire. And I tell you what, I'm excited about today's interview. Rachel Doyle. Rachel, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
That's great. And Rachel's a founder of an organization. Hey, listen, I tell you what, I should be up on so many things, Rachel. But when I got the GlamourGals thing, I thought, I don't know if a modeling agency, I'm just not sure, and so then I read what GlamourGals is about. I should be more up on things. I'm so sorry, but I had heard about you once I, heard some things from Meg. Is Meg your manager? Is that what she does?
No, but maybe I should be hiring her. She's so good.
I'm telling you.
She is our communications associate for our program. So
Well, let me tell you what, she communicated well and she kept up with me. So that's a big deal. Yeah. 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 And so, anyway, I'm going to read off of here so I don't miss anything what Meg sent me. And it says that you are the founder, of course, of GlamourGals in 2000 as a junior in high school. Let me tell you, that's significant for me because we're talking to youth pastors primarily, but also other types of youth workers. I worked in public school system as a volunteer because that's where students were. And I had a relationship with administration as well as teachers and all that because it's all that world. It's you can't do one without the other, and so that's where you are so exactly who I want to interview because of where you started. And so the first GlamourGals makeover took place in Comac, New York. So are you a New Yorker then? Right, you're from New York.
I grew up in New York. I was actually born in Boston.
See, now when you said Boston, it came through a little bit. I get it.
Yeah.
Say that. Go ahead. Finish up. What were you saying?
I was born in Boston, raised in New York, but I think I can go back into the Marissa Tomei. I talk like this if you need me to.
Absolutely.
Maybe not for the whole interview.
A part of it for those people from the area, that so they can understand you better. And my wife's from upper state New York, so I get part of that. Yeah, yeah. And so anyway, Comac, New York, with only 3 volunteers. Almost 20 years later, GlamourGals is now headquartered in New York City and has grown into a national movement, inspiring organizing over 1,300 teens and volunteers in 18 states to provide ongoing companionship and complimentary beauty makeovers to women living in senior homes. And you hold a degree at Cornell University. You have received the Richard C. Cornell Social Entrepreneurship Innovation or Innovative Award from the Manhattan Institute. Pretty impressive there, I like that. And so her work has been applauded by the New York Times, Chronicle of Philanthropy, Oprah, and hundreds of other news outlets. Showcased in management textbooks, noted in the recently released Get It Together book by Lauren Berger. She's currently featured in SAP's Doing Good Learning for Life podcast series. So let me tell you what, you're it. You're the girl. And tell me this. First of all, we know we got to do this up front. Tell people how they can reach you. Tell them what have you got, your book that's out or whatever else that you are promoting that will help them see you, invest in you. Tell us that first. Let's go there.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I think I always enjoy a soapbox moment.
Oh, yeah.
To reach me, you can always find me on social media at GGFounder or for GlamourGals at GlamourGals. I always you can reach me by text, email, smoke signal, whatever works for you. I'm always on. I think one of my passions is about connecting people and that they're passionate about and how that can help better other people's lives. I'm game.
Yes.
I'm game for that. So I don't have a book. I'm glad you mentioned my friend Lauren Berger's book because I think I lean on my network of friends and colleagues who are doing incredible things, and that only just rises you up. So I totally recommend getting her book. I'm featured in a couple pages of it, so you can find me there.
Yeah.
And
Hey, listen, that's you then. Yes, good. Keep
yeah,
going.
so I think social media and through GlamourGals for sure.
Yeah. So that's how you can reach Rachel. And Rachel, tell me, I have a set of questions normally I ask for the sake of these people who are doing student ministry. And longevity is what I'm looking at. The average youth pastor last 18 months. I was in student ministry for 35 years full time. I'm actually back in again. We're actually looking for interns, like 30 interns to interview so we can get 6 for Central Florida area. And so I've always had in fact, the podcast. So I've always been in. But we're looking for, they don't stay, they don't stick. It's a very difficult area. And school teaching is too. They tend to stay a little longer because of just enough benefits to keep them hooked in, here and there. Tell me about your influencers, though. Who was that person in your adolescent era, middle school, high school, college? Well, middle school, high school, because you started this your junior year. That is like above and beyond your mom, dad. That just they lit that fire in you. They started that spark. Is there a person like that?
I think I mean, I would have defaulted to say my mom, because I think I have to recognize how lucky I was growing up to have such incredibly engaged, loving parents. I mean, I was raised by school teachers, so it's not like they had all the connections. My father worked with students and people with mental illness, and my mom was a kindergarten teacher who worked with 4-year-olds. So their
Wow.
professional networks were very limited.
Yeah.
But I think they were able to inspire and give me the tools and resources in life that, a network can't give you. And that's being kind and generous and innovative and creative and question, but also listen. So I have to just give a nod to my family unit, and of course my older brother. Older brothers always want to shape younger sisters' lives.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I would say they definitely had a huge impact on, I think, how the person I became in my adolescence. But looking beyond that, when I think about the people who really inspired me, I have to say I thought big. I definitely looked to Oprah or actually Ellen DeGeneres. I think it's funny. Always was really inspired by comedians.
Yeah.
And I think I was because I think I love the humor in life. But I also am totally impressed by someone who can walk into any situation, positive or negative, awkward or not, and just flip the room and gain everybody's approval in a really positive way. Both, I think what Oprah and Ellen both share is that they never were bringing people down to bring themselves up.
Yes.
And they never put someone down to make themselves advanced. So reflecting on just the people I look to for my inspiration, it's not necessarily the individual with just past reflection. It's really about who that individual was and how their behavior was and the actions they demonstrated, in their life.
Yeah, and I'm going to give you a little information that you're going to love. It's wonderful that you choose comedians. I mean, Oprah's not a comedian, but she makes people laugh too and stuff like that. And Ellen, of course, does.
Entertainer. She's an
yes, she's an entertainer. Of all people, New York City #1 FBI negotiator Chris Voss got books all over the place. He's all over the internet. I don't know if you've seen Chris yet or anything about him. If you look on YouTube, you're going to see Chris. And he's retired from there. He has a group called the Black Swan Group. But he said if anything went sideways in a negotiation in the world, they did not listen to him. And so here's what he said, though. He said, when I enter a crowd, he said, I don't try to come up with a joke. I try to look at the circumstances. He said, if you make people smile or laugh, your intelligence, their intelligence goes up 31%.
I should be a very smart person right now.
Very smart. See, and you always smile. I
I
mean,
love
that's
to
what I
laugh.
noticed.
I love to laugh.
That's right. That's right. In interviews and all that. So you're probably way beyond 31% for you. Isn't that good to know, though? And he teaches this in business. He teaches Harvard the whole bit. He's such a great guy. But yeah, yeah. It makes sense that those are your influencers, and it makes sense that you went big. Were your parents kind of that influence to make you think, look far beyond what's around you, look at people that are really impacting the world, or was that just on you?
I think it was on me. They were never what you would call like a stage parent. I
Hmm.
think I was really lucky when I created Glamour Gals. There was definitely a broader appeal that I had no idea until the New York Times showed up at my very first makeover. And I was like, wow, this is a little bigger than me.
Well, I mean, at your first makeover.
First, there was myself and two girls from homeroom that were going to the senior home, and it was going to be documented by the New York Times.
I just love
And
hearing two girls from my homeroom. I mean,
yeah,
I mean that's so cool.
that's how it started. Some people, I think especially now with all the social media we have and the way people project an image,
Yeah,
is so much of creating something is literally just one step after the next. So it was find volunteers. Well, I asked girls in homeroom that day to say, would you like to go to the senior home? And two girls said yes. And then
yeah,
we went to the senior home, and it was sort of just multiple steps that were taken to make something happen. There wasn't anything necessarily magical or special or outlandish about it. So when I think about, like, how people project perfection and all these things online, when I look back at even how my parents raised me in that sense, they were never those stage parents. Actually, on all the press I did for probably about 20 years, at one point I threw the first pitch at the New York Yankees game,
Oh,
and it was
what?
the week before my brother's wedding.
Yeah, listen, you
And
just became
my
the
my
hero of
parents,
every guy in the world. I mean,
yeah, I reconnected with a lot of old family members that
yeah,
way.
I bet you.
And I threw a really good pitch, which I was proud of because I'm a pretty good athlete.
There you
I was
go.
surprised.
Ah, I can see it. You were you a softball player?
Not at all. Not at all. Not
Really?
a
What did you
softball
play?
player.
What was your sport? What was your
I
sport?
played tennis. I ran track and fields. I think I
Okay.
took a couple ice skating lessons, but I definitely like to be an athlete. Uh,
Ah, you had some muscle mass. You could get that ball across the plate. Good for you.
exactly. So my mom like couldn't make it, and I was like, you didn't think, okay, well maybe that's one thing you got to get to,
Gee, this might be a big thing. I don't know.
Yeah. So, or a photo shoot for Cosmopolitan or Glamour. And, they had to work. They were working parents, and they couldn't take the time off. And, I think it also showed that they showed up for what's really important in life.
Yeah.
And that is when I needed to get to a Glamour Gals makeover, they drove me there.
Uh,
And I think they prioritized differently. And looking back, in the moment, I was sort of like, hey, why aren't my parents here at like the American Eagle photo shoot?
yeah. Yeah.
But you know what? They showed up when I needed to go and do something like really meaningful for the community, and
Yeah.
they were there, hands down.
Yeah. Yeah. And who called New York Times, by the way? Who called them?
The senior home released a press release. The
They
Glamour
did it.
Gals are coming, and
Yeah.
they showed up.
That's listen, you were obviously destined to be known because those things don't happen that easily unless but for some people it's like you're in your groove and things just take place. I mean, just a few of the things you just said, many people would have died or given the right arm just to be able to throw a ball out at Yankee Stadium, unless they're a Mets fan.
Don't tell them I was a Mets fan.
Oh no! Oh no!
You know?
Okay, well, we're leaving that in, so I don't know what kind of trouble that's going to give you.
Yeah.
But anyway, we need to take her name off the roster. She was never here in Yankee Stadium. But anyway, no, that's really cool though. And then all these things that the things that you've been written up in, and obviously what you're doing really hits a chord with people. What made you do makeup for these ladies? I mean, just get from the top. What was your thoughts? How did you do
I
it?
I definitely loved, fashion and beauty and makeup as a teenager. And I
Hmm.
also enjoyed service. I really loved making other people smile, volunteering, you name
Hmm.
it. I was a part of that club. But I I think I wanted to do something that connected those two passions. And when my grandmother passed away in a senior home, I wanted to honor her, and in honoring her, I learned a lot about her from my dad. It was my dad's mom who had passed away, and it turns out she actually worked for Elizabeth Arden's Red Door Salon back in the day, and
Oh wow.
George Gershwin's mom's hair.
Oh
And
no.
my dad recounted all these stories. When my grandmother passed away 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, the landscape of senior care, people didn't understand Alzheimer's. They didn't understand all the different options that should be available for seniors to age. So I wasn't able to connect with my grandmother in the way that I think I would have loved to learn her stories.
Hmm.
And sort of all those things combined with this sort of passion and sort of looking towards those idols of people who I aspire to be,
Yeah.
I think I really wanted to do something to change the world. And I don't think I told anyone that then because it sounded so foolish
Yes.
to say,
I
I
get
want
that.
to change the world. Like,
Uh
okay, well, good luck.
huh.
Where are
That's
you
right.
going to start?
Good for you.
But,
Right.
and I started with what I was passionate about. And I said, well, why can't I do things that I enjoy, my friends enjoy, and make someone smile? So in August of 1999, I walked into the senior home that I had volunteered maybe once at in my community. I went into the activities director's office and I said, I'd love to spend some time with the ladies here and provide complimentary beauty makeovers. I just know how my grandmother, who is living, she would like run to the salon, after living through polio, breast cancer, a hip operation. Every Friday she went to the salon. She made it there.
Yeah.
It could be a snowstorm in Rhode Island. The
I'm
woman
getting
is
there.
at the salon.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So and when I mentioned this idea of spending time with them and creating sort of a salon experience, not doing hair, the makeup and nails and hand massages, she immediately said, who's the adult in charge? Who's your corporate sponsor? And I'm like, no problem. I'll do. Yeah. So she said, who's your corporate sponsor? Who's the adult in charge? And I was writing these down and thinking, I have no idea what a corporate sponsor is. And I walked out the double doors of that senior home into my mom's minivan and looked at her and said, you're an adult, I need an adult in charge. And back in the day, there was the Yellow Pages, and I
Mm-hmm.
opened up the Yellow Pages, and I just started cold calling and pitching cosmetic companies to get donations. Fast forward 3 months later, we had a local Mary Kay representative who donated makeup
Mm-hmm.
and came along to sort of coach
Oh,
us on that.
yeah.
And my two volunteers, and I went in to give the first GlamourGals makeover in January of 2000.
That's amazing. Now, 1,300 workers now. Is that what you've got? Volunteers?
Volunteers, they're
1,300.
teens in high school or college
Mm-hmm.
who volunteer as many times as once a week at a senior home,
Mm-hmm.
a couple times a month. It could be a rural high school, a couple rural high schools in Ohio who come together and volunteer because they have maybe 50 kids in their class, not a
Mm-hmm.
big population, who go to one senior home. Or in Staten Island, we have one high school who goes to 4 different senior homes.
Mm-hmm.
As an organization, we create the structure and give the inspiration and organization to support our volunteers, but they really bring their own creativity and, what works for them in their local community to connect with the seniors.
Uh, so tell me about when did you start realizing it was going to be an ongoing thing? I mean, as far as bigger than you, because obviously there's a point that you go, this is bigger than me. This is, because when you have a personality to do more, the only way you do more is when something gets bigger than you and you're able to rise up to that occasion, then you rise up to the next occasion. So tell me about when you first realized, oh my goodness, this is beyond what I can really do. But what was that like?
I think it was about 9 months after we started, I got a call from the Oprah Winfrey show.
Oh,
And I
nine
was,
months. Nine
yeah,
months after.
yeah,
Is that
nine
right?
months after. So they read the New York Times article. And to sort of backtrack on that, it was actually a call to the assistant principal's office in the middle of math class that got me thinking, okay, something's happening. I didn't skip gym this week, and I went down to the assistant principal. She said Oprah called us, and that was like a big deal back then because it was a long distance call from
Oh yeah.
Chicago to New York.
Oh yeah.
And she's like, I'm gonna let you call
Uh-huh.
her back, and I'm gonna let you call her
I'm
back.
gonna let you.
And
Right.
that was sort of the beginning to understand, wow, this is much bigger than me and my personal story and my journey to make a difference, because it was after Oprah aired that there was a thing called a website you could
Hmm.
create.
Yep.
And one of my dad's friends at work said, oh, I kind of build them on the side. And they built this incredibly cheesy looking GlamourGals website. Everything where you said modeling agency, what is this name? The
Right.
cheesy
Right. Right.
factor was in this splash page that was created. But it was a mode for people anywhere to reach out and say, I want to be a part of this. So after Oprah ran in every like pizza place during lunchtime one
Hmm.
month, they I built the website, and then it was 2 months later that CBS Early Show covered the story, and they gave a shout out to our website, and it crashed
Ah,
within minutes. It came back up,
you
but
mean you mean overloaded? It
yeah,
overloaded
exactly, back
basically.
in the day,
Yes. Yeah.
my splash page
Yes.
was overloaded. Um, but I received, I think within the first hour, over 150 emails from around the world. I had people emailing me from as far as Australia
Hmm. Hmm.
saying, you know, just sharing their story, really,
Hmm.
about how this resonated with them. My mom just went into senior care. I have a teenage daughter. My son would love to volunteer with the elderly. My my sister and I are trying to visit my mom as much as we can, but we live far away. It was like every story that is being told now, because in the next 20 years the US will be the oldest it's ever been in its history. And
Yes.
this dialogue between generations, we're going to need it, not just because there's incredible stories and advice to be learned, but there's going to be policy, quality of life, just social connections that we have to make sure we keep as a society.